It happened. We didn't know it would happen. We didn't know when it would happen. We didn't even know what to expect in return. But what we talked about on today's episode of Canucks Convo was that if the Canucks were going to make this trade, and if they were going to make it now, it was going to be because a team stepped up and offered a big package, a package that they couldn't refuse. And that's what it seems like the Minnesota Wild paid when they acquired Quinn Hughes today. Hello, everyone. My name is Dave Quadrelli. Thank you so much for joining us this Friday evening for an emergency edition of Canucks Conversation. I will be joined by a boatload of people. I paused a game of Scrabble with my mom to be here. Harman's getting his haircut. He's going to join us soon. We've got a whole whack of guests joining us on this emergency edition of the show. We're fired up. And if you missed the news, folks, I know some people have been tweeting out at 4:34 p.m. Vancouver time. Quinn Hughes is being traded to the Minnesota Wild. Moments later, both Friedman and Darren Dreger confirming the package the Canucks get in return, which looks like Marco Rossi, 24-year-old left shot center, of course, who the Canucks were interested in before, Liam Öhgren, Zeev Buium. This is the big one. This is the big part of the package. If you ask me, we're going to talk to Stephen Ellis, Daily Faceoff's prospect expert, about him in a moment here, and a first-round pick. Minnesota owns their 2026 first-round pick. I have not seen if there's any conditions on it, if it's a lottery protected pick, but they get a first round pick. They get Zeev Buium, they get Marco Rossi, which is an immediate help, and also the notice you're going to get here, Zeev Buium is a legit young stud defenseman. He is going to he has been playing in the NHL this year. He's going to step in and be the Canucks' number one left shot defenseman. Now, should he be there? We'll have that conversation, but certainly on the Canucks, he's a 20-year-old left shot defenseman. He's immediately going to be Filip Hronek's new D partner, and he has the potential to get a whole heck of a lot better. So we will see how it all ends up shaking out when it comes to the Canucks lineup. Our technical producer is Jacob Lazar. He's on top of stuff. Jacob, we're having some audio issues apparently. Am I seeing that in the chat? Maybe no. I'm yelling. Maybe that's why. All right. Seems like we're good. So refresh if you're having issues. But yeah, we're live. Yeah, people are saying audio's fine. Let's keep going then. Let's bring in Jeff Paterson, the host of Rink Wide Vancouver. Yeah, I had too many tabs open. That's probably my bad. I'll tell you, the Canucks Army traffic, Jeff. Good news for both you and I. Taking off right now.
Yeah, season's greetings, quads. Look, the timing comes as a shock to me only because I sat in for Blake Price on Sekeres and Price this morning and said as much that I didn't see a world in which this was going to go down before the holiday roster freeze, that I thought the Canucks were still in the info gathering stage. We don't know what's been taking place behind the scenes, but when that game against Buffalo ended last night and there were reports that things were heating up, I guess at that point, you knew it was getting real. Again, I didn't expect that 4:30 on a Friday afternoon that the end of the Quinn Hughes era would be upon us. And so still processing it all. It's a sad day for the Vancouver Canucks, without a doubt. Arguably, one of the best players ever and certainly the best defenseman in franchise history no longer plays here. And this organization had 6 years to build around Quinn Hughes, to get it right, to get to a position where a day like today would have been avoided. And yet they felt the need to pull the trigger and burn it down and start over. And so, yeah, of course, we're all looking at what the Canucks are getting in return, but you have to just take a moment and reflect on why you and I are doing an emergency podcast here. And that is that Quinn Hughes is no longer a member of the Vancouver Canucks, and that is breathtaking. Even though I had braced for it, again, when I saw the news, like everybody, I made sure that it wasn't somebody screwing around on social media. There was that split second that I didn't want to believe it. But here we are. Quinn Hughes is a member of the Minnesota Wild. Bill Guerin, not surprised. Bill Guerin's an aggressive general manager. We've seen that. He's also the general manager of Team USA for the upcoming Olympics. So there's a nice little tie in there. And the Minnesota Wild, already with star power up front, and Kirill Kaprizov and Matt Boldy, have just upped their game substantially with the addition of Quinn Hughes. So they got their hands full in that Central Division with Colorado and Dallas, but this makes the Minnesota Wild players right away. Like this, Quinn Hughes elevates them. I know this is a Canucks-focused pod, so we'll bring it back to that, but just Thank you to Quinn Hughes. Basically, thank you for the years of service here, the hours and hours of entertainment that he provided. And as much as you hope the Canucks get something that, scratches the surface of what Quinn Hughes was able to provide here in Zeev Buium, it's hard to imagine that he'll become another Quinn Hughes. So, head spinning here this afternoon. It's just an awful lot to process.
Yeah, so there's a lot of reaction in the chat, and look, we've been prepping people for this. We knew this was going to be the case. When you're the team giving up the best player in the trade, which, make no mistake about it, that's what the Canucks were in this. They traded Quinn Hughes. Come on. When you're trading the best player, you're always going to look like you're losing the trade, and you probably are going to lose the trade in the long term. But what you need to do, especially for a team in the Canucks position, is you need to go get those young assets. You need to go get things that could turn into the next Quinn Hughes. Now, that's a tall ask, but it's a could, right? We're talking could. And when you look at this trade return, Jeff, what I said right off the top, and obviously there's a lot of excitement about Zeev Buium. There's obviously some people who aren't familiar with Zeev Buium's game, calling him a bum. When you look at the trade return, Jeff, it's what I said right off the top. The only way they were going to accept a trade at this point, and again, we heard that I didn't have Minnesota on my list of teams that I was looking for, but this was a sky-high price for Minnesota to pay. This was about, I think, as well as the Canucks could have done in a Quinn Hughes trade. I definitely wasn't expecting this level of a return. And I know people are calling it a garbage trade and they're very upset about it, but I understand that. It's about losing Quinn Hughes, but what else would you have liked to see? I think this is a pretty good return for the Canucks. The one thing I will say is 24-year-old center, it kind of tiptoes into that line of, well, we got to stay competitive. We got to win now. And I don't like that. So that's my big criticism, is I would have liked to see more future related pieces. And also the big concern now is flipping that first round pick. You do not want to see the Canucks flip this first round pick. Hang on to it.
Right. So a couple of things there. One is, and I haven't seen people calling Zeev Buium a bum. Are you sure that's just not a typo?
No, you got to read our chat.
Oh, okay. I just thought somebody couldn't spell properly, and it just came out as. And the other one is we should all be celebrating because David Kampf is no longer the top center on the Vancouver Canucks, not a top two center on the Vancouver Canucks. Look, they had done so much diligence on Marco Rossi in the summertime that I guess I'm not shocked that Marco Rossi is a piece here and a central piece, and we all know they need help at center right. So they know what they're getting in Marco Rossi, who has already been a 60-point guy in the National Hockey League before his 25th birthday. I share your concern that, he's not a prospect. I mean, he's a youngish player still who has shown reasonably well. Liam Öhgren hasn't hit yet, and I'm not a prospect guy. That's the one, but a former first rounder who's got some decent size, but 18 games in the NHL this season and not a point. And in the American Hockey League, not much happening for him there either. So, we'll see. Potential is one of those things, but you don't want to be a guy that has potential that isn't realized. And so, that one I think is still a little bit of a hope, but he's young enough that he can still develop into probably a middle six kind of forward for them. But without a doubt, the centerpiece is, in my mind, you're trading away a defenseman, unlike Vancouver, to get a guy like Buium. There, not many teams that have that piece available. So, take the names out of the equation. If we're just talking about three pieces plus, I guess that was sort of my hope at the bare minimum for the Vancouver Canucks. And all three of the players are first rounders themselves. Now, we remember with the Bo Horvat deal, Patrick Allvin tried to spin it that they got 3 first rounders in return because Anthony Beauvillier had been a first rounder. And at one point, Aatu Räty was expected to be a first rounder. That one never really quite landed the way that the Canucks general manager had intended. But, they're all pedigreed prospects in that regard at the very least. And we've seen it. And, as I sit here, I keep refreshing my phone because we saw it last January. One trade, and that became a second trade quickly once they had a little bit of draft capital in their hands. And can Jim Rutherford, help himself here? Can he show some restraint after making a trade like this one? Or do they look at this and say, hey, we got bodies that we can plug into this lineup, and look out, NHL, here we come. Because even with this trade, they remain 32nd and dead last in the standings here this afternoon.
Jeff, there's going to be a lot of fallout from this. I'm sure you'll write about it over comment. I'm sure we'll have many conversations of it. But and maybe this is an unfair question right now, but how are you going to look back on Quinn Hughes' time as a Vancouver Canuck as we kind of wrap up here?
Admittedly, I was a little slow. Not that I doubted him when in his draft year. I mean, I certainly was watching, and I'm not a prospects guy, I'll admit that. But, the people that I trust and certainly all the information that's available, I just wondered if a guy at his size could develop into the player that he became. So I had some doubts, and I mean, he didn't have to show me anything just by 5 games that he played at the tail end of that first season when he turned pro out of college. It was apparent right then and there that this was a special individual. Size did not matter. Just the way that he commanded the puck and controlled the game and the vision. And I just spent even a few minutes as I was preparing for the show here, just thinking about memories of Quinn Hughes. And I was fortunate to be out traveling with the Canucks in those years up until COVID. So I saw him both home and away firsthand with my own eyes. There were a lot of special nights with this guy. And so, he leaves as the franchise's all-time leading defenseman scorer. And I'm glad about that because, I would have hated to have seen him get that close and then leave. Through trade here, we know that he's the best defenseman that this franchise has ever had. And so I thought he might add to his totals, but that record is going to stand for a while still and maybe for all time. And one of my favorite statistics around Quinn Hughes was the fact that he passed Alex Edler in close to 500 fewer games playing the same position. Again, and that's all due respect to Alex Edler. But still, Quinn Hughes was at such a higher level than anybody that had ever thrown on the uniform and played the position. So he was the best and probably will remain so in Canuck laurels and in the annals of history for a long time here. And just an absolute joy to watch. And it's been hard here for the last bunch of weeks, with all the noise swirling and his play sort of bogging down. It had to have been bothering him. He tried to put on a brave face, getting asked the questions repeatedly. Wasn't a whole lot that he could say. And yet it became apparent that this team had failed him. He did not fail the Canucks. He did everything that you could ask a first-round pick to do for them. He's one of the best draft picks in history, Canuck history, and one of the best bargains in the National Hockey League, too. That's the other thing with the contract that he's been on and will remain on. One of the best bargains in franchise history. And so the fact that this organization, top to bottom, could not do enough to support him, to surround him, to put him in an environment where he wanted to be here. He's not here anymore. And as I said right off the top, it's a sad day. It is. It should, I think any Canuck fan at any level should view this as a sad day that the franchise got sort of boxed into a position where its only way out was to trade a great player like Quinn Hughes.
Jeff, thank you for doing this. We've got thousands of people watching, well over 1,000 on YouTube. It's the most I think we've ever had on a YouTube live stream. So this is Jeff Paterson. You can catch him on Rink Wide Vancouver after every Canucks game, wherever you find your podcast. And he's also a regular right here on Canucks Conversation every Tuesday. So Jeff, we'll give you some time to digest.
Yeah, and I should just say that next Rink Wide is Sunday morning. Of course, the Canucks are where? In New Jersey. That game takes on a slightly different tone than I think we had all anticipated as this weekend began.
Jeff, thanks for doing this, my friend.
Yep.
Chat with Jeff soon on Tuesday. Now, we're going to bring in the regular co-host of Canucks Conversation, Harman Dayal. Look at that fade, ladies and gentlemen. My goodness. Okay. No, you know what, Harm? I don't blame you for being in the barber's chair. It looks fantastic. I know you only have a couple minutes, buddy. Your quick reaction, your instant reaction to the Quinn Hughes trade.
Okay, so, of course, it's very sad, heartbreaking for Canucks fans that Quinn Hughes is getting traded. I personally had already come to accept that Quinn was going to get moved. I'll be honest, even last summer in my head mentally, I had thought if this season goes off the rails, they're going to have to trade Quinn Hughes. So for a long time, I was mentally prepared for Quinn Hughes is going to be gone. And I had accepted that, especially when this team got off to an awful start, that this was probably coming down the road eventually. So the visceral response, the immediate response from Canucks fans has of course been you're shocked when you see your best defenseman, a superstar player like that get moved. You're never gonna quote unquote win a Quinn Hughes trade. However, I think this return, all things considered, is pretty good. I don't think that they could have gotten a whole lot more in a Quinn Hughes trade. And to me, the key, the big X factor is Zeev Buium.
Yep.
Marco Rossi is not the centerpiece of this trade, right? Like I've seen some like the way even in this slate, it's Quinn Hughes traded a lot for Marco Rossi, Liam Öhgren, Zeev Buium, and a first round pick. Zeev Buium is the centerpiece. Make no mistake. Marco Rossi, Öhgren, the first round pick, those are the afterthoughts. Buium is going to make or break this trade for the Vancouver Canucks. And I still have to do more digging, right? I'm going to go back and watch a lot of tape and all that kind of stuff. People will see that he was drafted 12th overall in 2024. I think he's a much better prospect than that. He was one of the best defensemen in college history. If he hits, and I say that in the most complimentary way possible, you're talking about a defenseman with elite skating ability. That's your future power play one quarterback. He has elite offensive instincts. And you look, for example, Scott Wheeler this past summer did his annual project where he ranks the top 100 prospects that have already been drafted to NHL teams. He had Matthew Schaefer 1, Michael Misa 2, Ivan Demidov 3, Zane Parekh 4, Zeev Buium 5. And that was his tier 1, right? So that's ahead of guys like James Higgins, Porter Martone, Berkeley Catton, Caleb Denoye, Antoine Frondel, ahead of Beckett Seneca, Ryan Leonard, ahead of Simone Nemec. Like just go on and on. Pretty widely considered an elite level prospect. Now, with him, and I've seen him play, this is his rookie season, there's going to be ups and downs defensively.
He's 20.
He's 20.
He just turned 20.
This year, we've seen he's got a lot of room to improve in the defensive side of things. He's pretty raw. I want to dive in and talk to more people to get their takes on, okay, what are the odds that he's able to really put it all together and be that top pair star? But I think he has that potential. Like the ceiling case for him is top pair star, a low end number one defenseman, where again, this guy in his draft year at the University of Denver had 50 points in 42 games. Last year, again, was one of the best defensemen in college hockey, 48 points in 41 games. Wild fans are terrified at the idea of, okay, if Quinn Hughes leaves, we traded away our potential like future top pair star. So again, no guarantee that he hits that ceiling, but I had for a while regarded him as one of the best prospects in all of hockey. And again, I still got to make more calls and execs and watch some tape to figure out, okay, what's the probability he actually hits that ceiling case versus what are the odds of a scenario where he is maybe in his prime, a power play quarterback who puts up the points, is still obviously part of your top four, but the 5-on-5 impact maybe isn't where you want it to be because the defensive side of the game hasn't come along. But again, to reiterate, and this, at least one exec told me this, where he thinks that he can be a light version, like a diet version of Quinn Hughes. And he meant that in a complimentary way.
Okay, we've got Stephen Ellis standing by. He's going to join us. How much more time you got, Harm? Do you need to dip right now?
I should probably leave right now. I got it right, unfortunately.
Harman Dayal, ladies and gentlemen, the regular co-host of Canucks Conversation. Harm, thanks for doing this. Appreciate it. There he goes. And I will say this as well. The problem I have with the trade as I sit here and digest it, again, Zeev Buium's an awesome prospect. We're going to talk to Stephen Ellis. He's the focus, right? I still don't love that it's a 24-year-old center coming back. Again, 21-year-old Liam Öhgren, 0 points in 18 NHL games this year. Those are two pretty key pieces of the trade. And I know Zeev Buium raises the level of this trade, the overall level. And I know everyone's excited about him. I get it. I get why everybody's excited, myself included. And I think they did pretty well. But man, if it was, all I'm saying if it was, okay, you can either have Marco Rossi or you can have Liam Öhgren, or you can have another first-round pick. You would really, really like to see this Canucks team take a rebuilding approach. And I know if Harman were here, he would say the thing that matters now is what's next. Is this signifying a rebuild, or are they going to go flip that first-round pick for more win now help, a la Marcus Pettersson? Is that what we're going to see? Because then this trade becomes a totally different conversation. But if this is the start of a rebuild, then it is, then it's something that we're going to be talking about and something I think we look a little more positively on. But I think the thing that matters right now is that the best Canucks defenseman, the best defenseman in Canucks franchise history is gone. And that is really sad. Again, it also is worth mentioning that if the Canucks were going to trade Quinn Hughes, like we've been saying this for a while, but I feel like it needs repeating that people don't quite get it. The Canucks weren't going to trade Quinn Hughes unless they thought that he wasn't going to stick around long term. So we haven't heard from Jim Rutherford, we haven't heard from Patrick Allvin, but I would be very surprised if those guys come out and say anything aside from, yeah, we kind of had a feeling he wasn't going to extend in Vancouver. All right, let's bring in Stephen Ellis, Daily Faceoffs prospect expert. We've got 8 minutes with him. Stephen, sell everybody on Zeev Buium. I'm just kidding, but tell us your honest opinion on Zeev Buium. People want honesty right now. Stephen's having some mic issues. We'll get those fixed in a second. But the people in the chat, again, I get it. Like, the people are very upset about Quinn Hughes leaving. And we're seeing some level takes too. But we're also seeing, like, don't call Zeev Buium a bum and not worth the return. Like, Zeev Buium's the cornerstone of this trade. Steven, I think we've got your mic working. I'll use it as a chance to change my question. Before I ask you specifically about Zeev Buium, how do you think the Canucks did in this trade? And then tell me about the prospects.
About as good as you would kind of expect, right? It's like you said, it's hard to win a trade where you're giving away one of the best players in the entire NHL. And I think no matter what, this was going to look like a bad trade. But you get a guy, Marco Rossi, who, if he was healthy for the start of the season, he's on pace for 60 points. He had 60 points last year. He was doing that for Kirill Kaprizov, but that's not, he doesn't have Kirill Kaprizov in the Vancouver Canucks. Buium, one of the top prospects in the league, one of the best young defensemen, a bright future. He's not Quinn Hughes, but to get a guy like him in a trade, I'm not sure you would have got a better prospect or rookie in a trade for Quinn Hughes. So I like that. Liam Öhgren, good player, kind of struggling, but he's only 21 years old. I think that's something to keep in mind. He's 21 years old. Yeah, he hasn't produced a lot, but there's also a lot of games where they're playing him 5 minutes a night, 6 minutes a night, and you're wondering, like, what's with the usage there? And when he gets confident, like we've seen in the AHL, he can actually be a decent player there. So I think it's a good start. Then you'll be, like, obviously the first round pick they already had could be a Gavin McKenna, could be a Tynan Lawrence, and that might be your number one center. Then you're looking at another first round pick if you don't trade it. This is a good year to have draft picks. So I think this is about as good of a deal as you would expect. It's not fair value, but I don't think you could have got better value.
Buium specifically, he's the cornerstone of this. You had him ranked as the Wild's number one prospect. Just turned 20 years old. Tell me about him, and really, where do you think he slots in when we talk about the game's top prospects league wide?
Yes, he was like a top 5 prospect heading into this season, maybe top 3. And you're looking at other guys like Matthew Schaefer and Ivan Demidov are probably the only ones that I'd rate higher heading into the year. They've been very good. With Buium, a bit of this season's been kind of weird because they didn't really play him on the power play to start the year, but he's very productive on the power play. He could be that guy. His skating, there were points where he was getting beat maybe a little easier than he needed to, but he was figuring it out. And it feels like no matter what, this guy's been in the top 10 Calder conversation the entire year. And I think with the Wild, they've had a kind of tendency with their young guys to, if you're not playing amazing right away, they're going to limit their ice time, limit their opportunities, and let those veterans take over. So I think in Vancouver, he's going to have a chance to really flourish. Like he didn't go from being one of the best prospects in the world to a nobody all of a sudden. I think the people are really like, oh, this guy's not that good of a player. It's like you've not watched Zeev Buium play. Like watching him play in college, the guy that a lot of scouts compared him to in terms of the type of impact he had on an average game was Cale Makar. They were not saying he's got the Cale Makar skill set, but they're saying that how good Cale Makar was in college and dominating every single shift. We saw that with Zeev Buium. So I do think you've got to love this pick. I know it's not Quinn Hughes, but it's a guy that's going to make a massive difference.
You say it's a good year to have draft picks. We had you on, actually, good timing. This past week, we had Steven on the show, folks. If you want to go find it, Canucks Conversation featuring Steven Ellis. When we talk about the draft, usually we're talking about the top of the draft being really good. I think we talked about the top 10. Assuming that the pick the Canucks got from the Wild is in the 20 to 30 range, right? Like, I feel like that's a safe range. What's available in that range if the Canucks choose to keep this pick? And also, Steven, I don't know if you were here when I said this. They have to keep this pick. This trade is way, way worse if they go and flip this for some aging guy.
100%, which is kind of what we expect the Canucks to do, right? I think when you look at someone like, you could get a guy like Oliver Savanto, who's playing pretty well this year in the Finnish Pro League. He's 6'3". He's a power forward, plays center. He could play the wing. A guy like that could be interesting. I know a lot of scouts are not as high on JP Hurlbert, who is tracking for like close to 2 points per game in the WHL as a draft eligible player. Like, that's pretty incredible. You could get William Hackinson, who's a 6'4" defenseman who's crushing much older, much more competitive players in the Swedish league. You could get Brooks Rogowski. I know a lot of guys are really excited about him. He's a 6'7" center who's absolutely massive. Maybe get a Nikita Klepov, who's one of the better forwards in the OHL this season. Like, there's a lot of talent. So it's not a super deep draft, but where, like, assuming the Wild doesn't go they don't go all the way, and I never trust that team to ever go deep, I think you're still looking at that second pick being very, very valuable.
Anything else on this trade? Like, is there any... I'll ask you this, Steven, as we kind of wrap up with you, because I know you got to run. Is there any package that you were looking at, or proposed package? I know Minnesota wasn't really a part of these conversations. Like, Detroit was a big one that we were looking at, like Nate Danielson. If you were able to get like Nate Danielson and Marco Kasper, that being a package, do you think the Canucks could have done better in any trade?
No, I don't think so. Like, I know, like, New Jersey, we're talking about that a couple days ago, and like, you look at Anton Salayev, like, Anton Salayev is not Zeev Buium. Like, the key part of this trade is definitely the real kicker here, and getting a first round pick is also valuable because, again, in the salary cap era, we just don't see a ton of these trades. Now, I say that knowing we saw Mikko Rantanen get traded twice last year, and there was the Tkachuk trade and the JT Miller trade and all those big ones. But you look at those, and like, I think Calgary would wish they still had Tkachuk, right? That was never going to work out. He wanted out too. So I think, given that there was not much leverage in this situation here, I feel like the return they got is very good. And I feel like because Minnesota's like, we just want to win, we want to actually be aggressive here, that was worth it on their end. Definitely a good pickup for Vancouver. It's going to be really tough to swallow right now. But if Öhgren can hit the potential that we know he's capable of, or many people believe he can, and Buium ends up becoming a top pairing defenseman, you're going to love it. I still think you're going to need to find someone a bit better than Marco Rossi, maybe at center. We'll see. But I think right now, just in general, you got to love what they just got here.
Steven, thank you. Appreciate your time, man. Short notice. You're the best. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
There he is, Steven Ellis, Daily Faceoffs prospect expert. Irfaan Gaffar is going to join us in about 10 minutes time. We're going to get some super chats.
Yes. So Quads, I'm not going to send them to you. I'm going to read them and you can react to them, just because we've had quite a few. So bunch of stuff going on, not how we normally do it. First off, Eagle Bay D9Y just gave us $20. And I said, hey, do you want me to read any comment? He said, nope, just a thank you for the emergency show. So big thank you to Eagle Bay there for your donation. Proceeds go to the BC Mental Health Foundation. Other super chats we got. We have Owen Jay-Z. I also accepted that he was going to be traded too. No matter what, it's still a shock. And obviously that was your sentiment there, Quads. Noah VCR has 2 super chats. I feel like we blame this on Quads because the day after, there's a whole episode dedicated to Quinn Hughes trade talks. He gets traded. Not even the day after, the same day. We kind of talked about that on the show today, and all of a sudden Quinn Hughes gets moved. Other one from Noah was that Family Feud answer from Quads isn't looking great anymore. I'm not sure which one that was.
Drop the Family Feud survey in the podcast in the description of this show. We've got over 1.5K people watching live on YouTube right now. There's obviously we have our thousands on podcasts and everything, and I'm sure they're on different social
Yes.
platforms as well. We play Family Feud every Thursday. Do we have any more super chats?
We have one more, and it's going to lead perfectly into our next spot here. Elfrin, regular listener, joins us at our watch parties. He left a super chat saying, would this signal the start of a rebuild? And we actually have some quotes from Jim Rutherford. J-Pat in the background let us know these were up on his X account, and we were able to pull them up.
I will read them
right here.
I will read them. This is from Jim Rutherford. We would like to thank Quinn for his time with the Vancouver Canucks. Quinn is a great person, a great player, and one of the greatest Canucks of all time. With the circumstances surrounding JT and now Quinn, we are fortunate to acquire these very good young players from Minnesota. They will be a key part of the rebuild that we are currently in. Wow, they use the word rebuild, folks. Put up a banner. They use the word rebuild. And this is from Jim Rutherford. They will be a key part of the rebuild that we are currently in, giving us a bright future moving forward. The hockey club will continue to build with talented young players, using that as a blueprint to become a contender sooner rather than later. Like Jim, this is from Alvin. Like Jim, I would also like to thank Quinn for everything he's done in Vancouver. Quinn played hard, led by example, and did a lot of very good things for the Canucks. Trading away a player of this caliber is never an easy decision to make. But it was one we had to do to make our team better. We are so excited to add a solid center in Marco, a good young blue liner in Zeev, and a versatile forward in Liam. This year's draft is a strong one, so acquiring a first-round pick was also a big part of this deal. Whew. Okay, that is... I've only been covering this team for 6 years, and I've only been a fan of them for 21 years. So I don't know, but at least in my lifetime, that is the first time I've heard the word rebuild be used by a Canucks president / GM. So if you're just joining us, folks, the Vancouver Canucks have traded their captain, Quinn Hughes, Marco Rossi, Liam Öhgren, and Zeev Buium being the big piece, and a first-round pick coming back. And I think, Jacob, I hope you agree with me. I think that answers the question that they are not going to move that first-round pick that they just got back from the Wild.
I would hope
that
so.
would be crazy.
Well,
that would be crazy.
And I even saw some people maybe with the extreme end of this saying, what if they just flip Rossi for picks at the trade deadline? I don't think that's going to happen, even with the rebuild finally getting the word that shall not be spoken finally coming out. But yeah, I think you're right, Quads.
Let's bring in Irfaan Gaffar. He joins us now. He's in the studio. Look at that. One of our insiders over at Canucks Army and Daily Faceoff as well. Irf, you were on Canucks Convo just a few hours ago on the regular show at 2 p.m. Pacific. Quinn Hughes traded. Give me your instant reaction.
I'm honestly laughing because I knew it was going to happen at some point. I just didn't think where there was that much smoke, there was that much fire this quick. But look, in the end, the Canucks were made aware that he did not want to sign an extension here. The Canucks or Jim Rutherford and Patrick Alvin were given a green light to go ahead and make this move. They go and do it. And I believe that this is the best possible return that they could have gotten. The New Jersey Devils couldn't move money out to make it work. And they tried. Trust me. The Detroit Red Wings, I think the Canucks wanted a player on that roster that the Red Wings weren't going to part with. I don't know who the player is, but I think that's kind of how it happened there. There were some other teams that were involved, but Billy Guerin, I mean, good for him. Checked in about a week ago and then went back to the Vancouver Canucks and said, let's get this done. And Zeev Buium, Marco Rossi, who helped alleviate, I don't want to say solves their center ice depth because I'm not entirely sold on him being a full-time second-line center just yet, but he alleviates their center ice depth right now. Now David Camp doesn't have to play there. Thank goodness for Canuck fans and for Jeff and I on Rinkwide, on Rinkwide, not having to talk about that anymore. Prospect and a first-round pick. And I think when you go and look at it, it's honestly kind of sad. It really is. All he wanted to do was win here, and he wasn't given the pieces to be able to do that. And this is how this story ends, with Quinn Hughes flying with the Canucks to New York and now having to go and meet the Minnesota Wild wherever they are. Like it's wild. It's crazy. We're going to remember this day for a long time.
Yes, we are. Now, Irf, the word rebuild has been used
Yep.
by Jim Rutherford. It's official. This team is going to rebuild. I don't love the 24-year-old center. I know people are already giving me crap in the chat for it, and maybe I'm wrong, but I would have just gone as young as possible on these. And I know 24 is not old. Trust me. I know 24 isn't an old age, but that's the only part of it that I'm looking at. And again, Öhgren 21. We don't know what Öhgren is, but I see 0 points in 18 NHL games. Immediately, I'm just kind of like, okay, what do we have in this player here? What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, David Kampf has 0 points in 12 games here in Vancouver, and he's played over 500 in his National Hockey League career. So they're getting players to. You obviously have to fill out your roster. They're not just going to trade Quinn Hughes and get pick. Like, you have to at least get something back, and that's what they wanted. They wanted a return of some players. They wanted to get younger, which is interesting because you send out the memo saying that you want to get younger and trade your veterans, then you trade Quinn Hughes. That's the first move you make, which is still pretty wild. I think Kiefer sure was still scratching his head a little bit, being like, when am I going? And am I going now? But who knows, to be honest. Look, I think that there's a lot of people that are going to hate this trade. I think that there's a lot of people that are going to love this trade. I'm of the mind where I'm going to look at it and say, you have to look at this trade and say, we'll see. Because if Zeev Buium can turn into a stud defenseman, you hope on that. He's obviously not going to be Quinn Hughes. Let me be clear here. The Canucks aren't winning this trade, no matter what, because Quinn Hughes is gone. So no matter what happens or what anyone says anywhere, the Canucks lost this trade strictly because Quinn Hughes is gone. And then you look at the center ice depth in Vancouver, and anyone, Marco Rossi or whoever it was going to be better than what they currently have. Elias Pettersson out. Marco Rossi is now your de facto number one center here in Vancouver. Welcome to Vancouver, Marco Rossi. Get ready to eat some minutes. So when you go and look at it from that perspective, you need guys to fill out the roster. And that 2026 first-round pick, I mean, look, it's probably going to be 20, maybe 18, like wherever the Minnesota Wild finish. They're probably going to finish third in their division, maybe second. I don't know if they can go on a run here, and Quinn Hughes gives them that big of a jump. But, yeah, I mean, look, Quinn Hughes, 433 games as a Vancouver Canuck, 409 points. Most franchise all-time leading points getter as a defenseman. A guy that you knew what you were going to get from him every single night. Arguably, I'll sit here with anyone and say he might be one of, if not the best player to ever wear a uniform for the Vancouver Canucks, is now no longer going to have one. They've traded 2 captains and JT Miller. You're left with now Marcus Pettersson with an extension, Elias Pettersson with an extension, Evander Kane. The list goes on. Philip Roenick, obviously, with an extension, and that one was pretty good. But there's some serious questions, obviously, with this regime as well, as to who is gone and now who does this team have. And we're going to sit here and talk about it for the days, weeks, months, for a very, very long time. I don't want to consider this a dark day in Vancouver Canucks history because you don't really know what's going to happen, but it's definitely not a good day, and he didn't win the trade.
Yeah, exactly. And I think this is the point that we're trying to make, because there's people in the chat like, why are you putting such a positive spin on this? Like, that's not what we're trying to do. Obviously, you're excited about Zeev Buium, but it's the reaction we have is with the context that Quinn wasn't going to re-sign in Vancouver. The only way they were going to trade him was if they got a deal that they couldn't refuse. And when it comes to trading Quinn Hughes, this was probably the best deal that they could have gotten. Now, I have some concerns with the package. I've already outlined those. But you're excited about Zeev Buium. Like, that is a blue chip prospect that you were able to get back. And again, when you're talking about what they could have done, and it's circumstantial, and no doubt, like, we're not trying to absolve the organization of what an abject failure it is to lose Quinn Hughes. The only person to blame for losing Quinn Hughes is ownership. Like, this is what it comes down to, is it's the top of the organization. Their decision making has led to this point. Like, that's what it comes down to.
And here's my thing. I think Elliot wrote it yesterday in 32 Thoughts, and we talked about it earlier on Convo. An executive told him that the ask was outrageous. I don't think that's an outrageous return. You don't? I don't think it's outrageous. Like, if the ask from the Canucks was outrageous, does that really scream outrageous, those players and that package? Like, what really, or you know what I mean? I think
At
it's
the start,
good. I think it's the best the Canucks could have gotten, but I don't think that, one GM saying the ask was outrageous. Maybe for that team and who they wanted.
I'm assuming the Canucks came down a bit. Do you agree with me? I think they must have come down. This isn't outrageous.
They must have come down a little bit, I think. Because I think that people are now being like, well, where's the other first round pick?
Yes, exactly. That's the part we haven't talked about.
Why is there not another pick attached to this? And Marco Rossi was a first round pick. Zeev Buium was a first round pick. You have a first round pick now coming up in next year's draft from Minnesota. And then another prospect, obviously, as well. So there's a lot of layers to this. I mean, it's going to take years before we decide what really happened and how this trade is going to be graded. But Jim Rutherford and Patrick Allvin had no hope. They had no chance in winning this trade from anybody because of the player that was leaving. And I'll maintain that. I think what they got back was as good as they were going to get. And I think that's where this team is now.
We got some super chats here. This one is from @FreePete. He said, exactly, Quads. We could have ended up like Marner, obviously talking about the idea of losing Quinn for nothing or for less than what they were able to get for him today. Again, you've got 2 playoff runs if you're the Minnesota Wild and with Quinn Hughes. So you paid a premium to get him. This is from Walk. He said, don't stop here. Sherwood, Kane, etc. Let's do this. Cam in the Valley said, do you think Canucks are more likely to cut ties with Adam Foote by the end of the season? Irv, unless you agree with me, I think the answer is absolutely not. I don't think they're making a coaching change at this juncture.
No. And I mean, now that you lose your best player, second best, you're one of your best players, like they're not making the coaching change now. I think that Team Tank will be happy to see kind of the way that this season goes for the rest of the year.
Now from Walk, I want to get this. The don't stop here. Or if I ask you this, what's next? Like, there has to be more. Obviously, if you're using the word rebuild, you're not keeping Kiefer Sherwood through the trade deadline. Obviously, you're not extending Kiefer Sherwood. What's next? Like, how far do you think this Canucks team can go into this rebuild, into trading away their assets?
Well, they just did the biggest thing that they could possibly do. So they started off with a bang. Right. And I think that, Jeff and I have talked about it a bunch as well on our post-game shows. It's if they're going to do this, they need to strip it down right to the bolts. Like, you should not be trying to extend Kiefer Sherwood. If your ask is a first round pick for Kiefer Sherwood and a player, just get a second round pick. Take whatever you're going to get. If people are offering you things for some of your players, just take it. I'm not sure what's going to happen with Evander Kane. I know that one of our listeners mentioned his name as well. And then you've got a slew of guys with no trade clauses and no movements and things like that. So is Connor Garland's name going to start coming up a lot? I know Boston has definitely had some interest in him, but who's next? And I would assume it would be Kiefer Sherwood, but also I sat here and thought that he would already be traded by now. And Quinn Hughes is the guy to go first.
Yeah. We got a super chat from Vin in the chat. There's like 100 comments about who the next captain is. Folks, it doesn't matter. They're not going to name a captain this season. Like, I can't believe so many people are asking about this. They're not going to name a captain. They don't need to name a captain. They shouldn't name a captain even through next year. The point of a rebuild, anyways, I don't think we need to go through this. They're not going to name a captain. Do you agree with me?
Their last 2 captains have been traded. So
yeah,
maybe the guy that they're going to give the C to is like, nah, I'm good right now. But
I don't know who the next captain is. Put me down for Braden Coots. Put me down for Braden Coots as the next captain of the Canucks. Let me go on the record with that. Yeah, they're not naming a captain. I only answered it because someone put it in super chat form. They're not naming a captain. Stop asking who the next captain is going to be. We don't know. It's certainly not happening this season. Probably isn't going to happen next season. And now some people chiming in saying we don't even have anyone captain material. Yeah, let's see what else is in the chat here. Yeah, okay. I maybe that was a bad idea. I took a quick look at the chat and it's just moving nonstop. So we thank everybody for their support and for checking out the show. Like I said, we've got thousands of people watching right now across multiple platforms. Dave Quadrelli, Irfaan, Gaffar. We were joined earlier by Jeff Paterson, Harman Dayal, Stephen Ellis, CanucksArmy.com, DailyFaceoff.com. Irf, what else can we plug right now? Rinkwide Vancouver.
13,000 on X. Good for you guys. That's awesome. Let's go. Yeah, Canuck Nation is absolutely excited about this. And you should be.
Well, hang on. Excited? Are they excited about it, Irf? Or are they watching and just cannot believe their eyes? Like, okay, for all of you out there,
how did you
listen, you're not dreaming. You're not dreaming. I'm telling you, you're not dreaming.
But when you first heard this come out, like, did fans not think that there was a possibility? Where there's smoke, there's always going to be some sort of fire. It's always going to happen. That's how it always does happen. And I think in this sense, well, I mentioned it on Rink Wide a while ago with Jeff when we first sort of started hearing the rumblings of this, is there is no way that Quinn Hughes and his agent don't know about this every step of the way.
Yep.
About what's going on and what the possibility could be. Look, man, some of the nights Quinn looked defeated. Body language on the ice wasn't there. Still playing 26, 27, 28 minutes a night. And I, to be honest, I feel bad for Quinn Hughes because Quinn wanted to win here. He was named the captain. I think early on, I think his indication was, I want to sign an extension. I want to be in Vancouver. Right? And then you build teams, you do things that are supposed to make Quinn Hughes happy. Remember, we talked about it in the summer. What are they going to do to make Quinn Hughes happy? What are they going to do to keep 43? Well, they didn't do anything. You didn't do enough. And I think that that's where we look at it and say, all right, who's really to blame here? This management regime is going to sit when it's all said and done, and we sit here and look at it right now and say they traded Bo Horvat, they traded JT Miller, and they traded Quinn Hughes. And now they are left with Elias Pettersson with a monster extension and a bunch of other guys that have really big extensions and no move clauses left, right, and center. And your franchise is one of your franchise's greatest players ever in the 56-year history of the Vancouver Canucks is now gone to the Minnesota Wild.
The Wild are kind of like, we haven't even really talked about the fact that the Wild kind of were a sleeper team in all this, right? Like we talked about them when it came to a Kiefer Sherwood trade, and you knew you weren't getting Zeev Buium for Kiefer Sherwood, but it was fun to look at the Wild's prospect pool. And again, you had the thought of, oh, maybe they could get Liam Öhgren 1-for-1 for Kiefer Sherwood. But the Minnesota Wild stepping up for Quinn Hughes. We had some Wild fans in the chat. Funny enough, most of our chat is Canucks fans obviously being very upset about Quinn Hughes leaving. It's about 50-50 about people that are excited about the return. But man, oh man, there are a lot of Wild fans that are like, we got fleeced. And I'm just going to tell you, I wouldn't call it you got fleeced. You're getting Quinn Hughes in the trade. You're getting the best player in the trade. So if you're a Wild fan that's in the chat right now, upset about this trade, you must think very highly of Zeev Buium. But yeah, you're getting Quinn Hughes. Quinn Hughes is just such a good player. But yeah, the Wild stepping up kind of surprised me. And we talked about those sleeper teams, right? We talked about that today. Or I brought up Carolina. We were talking about Washington, about getting over the hump. There's a team that really needs to get over the hump, the Minnesota Wild.
Yeah. And I think that they go and do it. And I have absolutely no problem with Bill Guerin going and trying to, go about his business and do what he does and do what he did in the way that he did it. Like, if you have a chance to go and get one of the best defensemen in the National Hockey League. In fact, he was the best defenseman in the National Hockey League at one point, in the last couple of seasons. You go and do it. 31 other teams probably called. And the Bill Guerin and the Minnesota Wild were like, you know what? This is our chance. This is it. This is our chance to show Kirill Kaprizov that we're in it. This is our chance to show other free agents around the National Hockey League that we might be in it. But now is where the work begins. Now, can Bill Guerin convince Quinn Hughes to stay? Right? I mean, he's there for another year and a half. Can he convince Quinn Hughes to sign a long-term extension there? I think that's going to be a big question too.
8-year extension are like they are now, if I'm reading the CBA correctly, they are now the only team that can offer Quinn Hughes an 8-year extension. And the alternative is 6. Like if you're at a $15 million cap hit, you're leaving $30 million on the table by hitting free agency. Now, of course, the Wild could trade him if it becomes clear to the Wild that Quinn doesn't want to extend there, like it became clear for the Canucks, then they can go ahead and trade him as well. There's that part of it too.
Here's what the Wild should do. The Wild should offer Quinn Hughes a 4-year contract extension and to have it line up when Jack's contract expires.
Okay.
And then you just figure it out in the next 3 years.
You just figure it out. Yes.
You just figure it out after that.
We got a super chat here. It's from Starcaster in the chat. It's a 543 US, so that's worth more to us. Super chat. It's for the BC Mental Health Foundation. All of our proceeds go to the BC Mental Health Foundation. He said, Vancouver fans, also keep in mind he's from Dallas. He said, Vancouver fans, this is exactly how Dallas fans felt when they traded Luka. He's talking about the basketball player, of course, Luka Doncic. He said, I'm so sorry, y'all. And then he said, screw you to the owner. We appreciate the super chat. Let's see what else is in the chat here. I want to make sure we're getting to everybody's thoughts. Like I said, it's pretty split with people who are just super excited about Zeev Buium and the return the Canucks got, and then there's others who are really upset about the trade. And look, I totally get it. I totally get it. Okay, hold on. Actually, I shouldn't just read what people say in the chat. Someone's Jacob,
don't read anything verbatim.
Jacob,
Yes, I'll put a
check
few.
the validity of this Darren Dreger thing in the chat? Do you see it? I need you to check the validity of that before I just read it on the air. I put it in our private chat.
Okay, yeah.
I just don't want to read it on the air without, but because people have gotten me with that before. Shocker. People have gotten me.
There's probably nothing. I don't know what it is, but I don't think that there's
no.
That's true.
Okay,
that's
there we go.
True?
Yeah.
All right. So what it said, and thank you to the
there it
person who goes by the handle at the Not Real Pavel Bure. He said Darren Dreger is reporting that the Canucks knew for about a week now that Quinn was going to free agency.
No. Darren Dreger said that the Canucks have known for a while Quinn wasn't going to extend. That's what.
Oh,
Canucks have known for a while that Quinn wasn't going to extend. So they had their decision. They had the decision made for them. And in that decision, whether a while was a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, they knew. And with that, they decided that this was the right course of action. If a player doesn't want to be on your team or isn't going to extend on your team long term, then good for Jim Rutherford for going out and getting ahead of this and getting it done. If he did not want to be here, he did not want to extend, he did not want to sign a long-term contract. We were talking about this in the summer. And it was just bullshit back and forth, left, right, and center, being like, oh, yeah, he's not going to extend. He wants to go play with his brothers. And then, he was asked at the player media tour. Jack was asked at the player media tour. Luke has been asked, would it be nice to go play with your brothers? Well, of course it was. What are they supposed to say? They're brothers. It would be great. My brother is a professional athlete. I was too. I'd want to play with him as well. The fact that they had informed them, which means a conversation was had, whether it was recently or in the last little while. It would have to have been more recent because the trade just happened. So recently there was a conversation that was had. I think it happened a lot sooner than people may think, because you don't hear the New Jersey Devil rumors and you don't hear these things come out unless Jim Rutherford and Patrick Allvin know what's going on. They had their answer. They got it from Quinn, whether they asked Quinn or whether they went to Pat Brisson and Quinn Hughes, and Quinn went to them and said, we're not extending. And because of that, once they got those words, there's a green light from ownership. See you later. And that's exactly what happened. At least in my opinion.
Do you agree with this? Karn, regular listener of our show, said, I'm still shocked that this management got the opportunity to trade Quinn. What say you?
Can you repeat that? Sorry.
Karn, I'm still shocked that this management group got the opportunity to trade Quinn.
I'm not, because if you really go and look at it, if you're an owner, if you're Francesco Aquilini and you're the owner and you own this team, are you going to trust someone that you really don't know that well? Like, are you going in an interview process to keep Quinn around, knowing full well he's not going to extend, to hire someone to then go through the process to try and trade Quinn Hughes? Jim Rutherford's done a pretty good job of making deals in his career. People have known that, and he's not afraid to make big, bold moves. So I'm not surprised, to be honest, that it's Jim Rutherford and Patrick Allvin that went ahead and were doing this. I just think that the alternative was, if you fire them both, who is it going to be at that point? It's not going to be an interim GM. It's not going to be a guy that you brought in right away to go and do it. I just don't think that that's how it was going to work. I think that Jim was always going to make this trade, whether it happened now, or whether it happened at the trade deadline, or whether it happened in the summer. I think that this one was going to have Jim Rutherford's fingerprints all over it.
This question came from Quarterman88. He said, why not wait till the trade deadline? This is an interesting one. I think it has to do with the fact that the Canucks are scuffling so bad and that the vibes are really bad around the team. Like, I know it's launching a rebuild, but like this team needed a shakeup, and not like a shakeup of like, oh, they got to go win, just to improve the vibes. Like, do you agree with me on that? Like, that probably is why they did it when they did it.
I mean, what do you say? You wanted them to what was that? Sorry.
Sorry, I
Yeah,
know we're both like
100 people are texting me right now.
I know. It's all good. But basically what I was saying is he asked why they made this trade now and not at the trade deadline. And I just talked about how, look, they're 32nd in the league. Quinn keeps coming out looking freaking miserable every time he has to speak as the captain of this team. He's starting to take heat. Like, there was a lot of bad vibes around the Canucks. And I'm not saying it's going to get better. Like, that's not what I'm saying. But this team needed a direction and they needed a reset. You couldn't just keep doing the same thing over and over. Now, could this have been a Kiefer Sherwood trade and accomplished a similar goal? Yes, it could have. Could it have just been a press release where Jim Rutherford says, hey, we're going to rebuild? Maybe it could have. So maybe I'm wrong. But I look at it and say it's a combination of the Wild stepped up and offered something that the Canucks felt they couldn't say no to, and they got the deal done.
I think that there is a bit of that for sure. I think that when it came out and the news started to circle around what was going on, I think the phone started to ring off the hook. Like, how often is a player like Quinn Hughes made available? Teams are going to want to get their hands on him. I don't think that they could have let this drag on any longer than they did, to be honest. I am very surprised it happened when it did. I thought it might have been a little bit after the roster freeze, but sometimes these things work a lot quicker. Canucks general manager and this management group likes to make news on a Friday afternoon. It's just kind of their thing. That's what they like to do. So I really do think that as soon as we started to hear the news come out about the New Jersey Devils, as soon as we started to hear the news come out about teams poking around, and when let me put it in these terms, when Jim Rutherford sent out that memo to the league being like, we're open for business for our veterans, teams called about Quinn Hughes. And you know what the answer was then? Not yet. And that was only a month ago. So what changed in that next week and a little bit to where now Quinn Hughes is no longer a Vancouver Canuck? There was an answer given, whether it was Jim Rutherford and Patrick Allvin asked Quinn Hughes for it, or Pat Brisson and Quinn Hughes went and told the Canucks this was what was happening. There was an answer that was given, and this is where we find ourselves sitting here. December 12th, 2025, Quinn Hughes gone to the Minnesota Wild.
Some super chats to get to. This one's from D'Lo Fiasco, $5 super chat. He said, just remember the Devils got nothing for Scotty Niedermayer and he signed with the Ducks. Jody Burleson, regular listener of the show, in the chat said, now that we are in a rebuild, can we start talking more about who is in the top of the draft? If that's who we want the most, if we're tanking, and who we want the most if we're tanking. Yes, of course, that's going to be a heavy topic of conversation, and draft coverage is going to be a big thing. We've actually got something dropping from Dave Hall tomorrow on Canucks Army, CanucksArmy.com. If you're just joining us, and man, we had thousands of people. I think we crossed 20,000 across all of our platforms, which is just phenomenal. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. And if you're new here, that is Irfaan Gaffar joining me. He's the host of Rink Wide Vancouver, our post-game show here at the Nation Network and Canucks Army. I am David Quadrelli. I am the host of Canucks Conversation, typically joined by Harman Dayal, but we had Jeff on the show, Irf's co-host on Rink Wide, Stephen Ellis, the Daily Faceoffs prospect expert. Man, oh man, what a night, Irf. Any final thoughts from you as we get ready to wrap here?
Actually, hold on. Before we go to that, we have one more guest, Quads.
There you go. Bring him in. People know him around here. Dan Riccio joins us now. Dan, you get to put a bow on the Quinn Hughes era in Vancouver. How are you going to remember this?
I'm gonna remember that Quinn Hughes left Vancouver before Riccio did.
That's so true. I know. We talked about that a couple of weeks ago, Irf, when this was all going down and the trade rumors really started to pick up. This is wild, man. The way that this has picked up steam over the last couple of weeks was surprising, to say the least. But when Jim Rutherford gets his mindset on something, there's no stopping it. And I think that's exactly what happened here. They made the decision that they were going to move on from Quinn, and Then it was just a matter of finding the return that they liked. I don't know if everybody likes it, but maybe it was the best that they could get in this current environment. So that's what they got.
Dan, just as you look back on Quinn's time in Vancouver, and I know there's going to be a lot of this over the next little bit here, but as you look back on his time, he leaves here as the best defenseman in franchise history, points leader as well. How do you look back? How are you going to look back on Quinn Hughes' time? There's going to be a lot of questions about like Ring of Honor and all that sort of stuff. How do you look back on Quinn Hughes' time in Vancouver?
For me, he's probably the most talented player to play in the franchise's history. I know Pavel Bure exists. Don't get me wrong. Like, Bure was the guy that made me fall in love with the Canucks when I was a kid. And Hughes is every bit as good as Bure was. He's every bit as exciting as a player as Bure was. And yeah, the Sedins were special and they're Hall of Famers too, but Quinn Hughes is just like a freak. Like, I don't know how else to put it. The guy has put up video game numbers his entire career. You look at his offensive stats, they're like up there with the likes of Bobby Orr, Brian Leach, the best of the best offensive defenseman that this game has ever seen. And he was a Vancouver Canuck. The way I look back on it is how it's ending. And that is, it's a failure on the franchise that they haven't been able to put enough around him to create a more sustainable winner than they have through his career in Vancouver.
Is this what it's going to be remembered as, though? Because we're going to sit and say all the numbers that he has. He shattered Alex Edler's, points as a defenseman record. He won the Norris Trophy. He was unbelievable in that playoff run that the Canucks had in 23-24. But when it's all said and done, remember we sat in the summer and talked about make Quinn happy? They just didn't didn't do it. And that's the problem. And that's what it's going to be remembered for.
Well, and it was, they built this team this season on a house of cards. You knew Philip Hedl had the injury issues, and that was going to be a concern. You hoped that you could hold it together long enough that a center comes available in trade. But you think about the way that this team has unraveled since the playoff appearance, since the Pacific Division win. They lose Zadorov and Lindholm in that summer, and they come back. The beef between Paterson and Miller pops back up again. They are forced to move on from Miller. It's just been an incredible amount of everything that could go wrong did go wrong for the Vancouver Canucks. And it led to this point where Quinn Hughes, maybe he didn't out and out say it like I'm not going to re-sign, but the writing was on the wall for everyone to see with the way that this season went. It was just not going to be a possibility. And to me, you're right, Irf, like that's a failure again on how they've tried to put this together and how miserably it went this season to end up in this place right now.
Murph's kind of tweeting some quotes right now from Jim Rutherford, or at least he's had a couple of words with him. He said that Jim Rutherford says it was indicated in the off season that it was highly unlikely Hughes would sign long-term with the Canucks. So they knew.
Yeah, they knew.
They knew. So the fact that they knew when it happened now, that actually doesn't surprise me.
It tracks with a lot of what I had heard and how this was going. Obviously, the team hoped that they could change his mind. And I do think Quinn, as much as, maybe the decision was made in the summer, I don't think it was like a definitive, I don't want to sign in Vancouver. But if you're forcing me to answer right now, I'd probably say I'm leaning no.
Yeah.
And that's ultimately how I think this started to play out, how we saw the snowball beginning to roll early in the season, things not going well, Petey's not finding his game in the way that it was before his contract kicked in. All of those things continued to just pile on to what the organization already knew was going to be a small percentage chance of them keeping Quinn Hughes. And now like they knew, like this isn't going anywhere that leads to Quinn Hughes saying, I want to sign for another 8 years here in Vancouver. So you're forced to make a decision. Did you have to make that decision on December 12th? That's a different conversation, but they clearly felt that this was the day, or this was the time of year that they were going to get the best deal possible.
More information coming from Dan Murphy Jim Rutherford via Dan Murphy. Murph tweeted this. Minnesota had the best offer according to Jim Rutherford. No one else came close. I saw another tweet as well about a supposed offer from the Washington Capitals that included McMichael, Hudson, a prospect, and 2 firsts for Hughes. So, Dan, I ask you this. How do you think the Canucks did on this trade return?
It's underwhelming because you traded Quinn Hughes. I don't think there's a trade out there that makes you
no
feel,
matter what.
There's not really a trade out there that makes you feel good about it, right? Like, okay, if Detroit's giving you Simon Edvinsson and Nate Danielson, that's not on the table. Like, what are we talking about here? Like, Yzerman's not doing that. And maybe, we should maybe scold NHL GMs for being like, hey, you're getting Quinn Hughes. Maybe it's okay to part with a couple of blue chip prospects in that situation. But they obviously felt differently. Of course, Jim Rutherford's going to say that this was the best deal possible. If there was a better deal possible, he would have made that one. But that's beauty is in the eye of the beholder, right? They clearly think that Zeev Buium is a guy that can project to give you some of the offense that Quinn Hughes is leaving behind. And he's a really good defenseman prospect that they'll need on the left side with Quinn Hughes now gone. Marco Rossi's a guy that they've liked over time. He adds to their center group. He's still under 25 years old. So that's a nice piece to get. If it doesn't work out, maybe you still have outs there in the next year and a bit to add on to your rebuild. And of course, Liam Öhgren's a guy that they liked in his draft year because Patrick Allvin likes every Swedish prospect, but it's not a player that's had a great start to his NHL career. So there's a lot of maybes here with the Vancouver Canucks getting this deal from the Minnesota Wild. And I know this is a better draft than what we normally project. At least that's what the scouting analysts are telling us. It's still probably, now that they've got Quinn Hughes, you're probably looking at a draft pick in the 20s. And we know those are very hard to hit superstar level talent on. So yeah, it's a deal. It's got a lot in it, but it's ultimately underwhelming because it's always going to feel underwhelming when you trade away Quinn Hughes.
Final thoughts from both of you. Let's start with you. Just put a wrap on this.
Okay, let me just read one more Murph tweet. Jim Rutherford said that there's a level of sadness trading away the player and the person that is Hughes. He was also worried that they would not get a good return for him, but very excited with the players that are coming from Minnesota. If there was a level of sadness in trading Quinn Hughes, the player and the person, then why didn't you surround Quinn Hughes with better players in the past couple of seasons? Like that one's on you a little bit for sure. And I get the human aspect of it. And obviously Quinn Hughes is the captain of this team, but this could have been avoided. I really think it could have been avoided. They got the indication that Quinn wasn't going to re-sign in the summer. I think we all kind of talked about that a little bit. It wasn't a secret. There were people around the National Hockey League and in different circles, even at the tail end of last season, that said that Quinn had no shot of re-signing here in Vancouver. And this is where we sit, man. This is what happens. This is the Vancouver Canucks. This is the way that things kind of go. It sucks to see a player of that caliber get moved for sure for the fans. You hope that one of these guys coming in can turn into a player, and no one's going to be that Quinn Hughes caliber level of talent. And you also feel bad for those guys because they're going to be the guys that are involved in the Quinn Hughes trade. So there's going to be so much pressure on Zeev Buium now. He's not stepping into a win situation at all here in Vancouver. Marco Rossi, you're going to be the savior now. Welcome to being the top line center because Elias Pettersson is hurt. So that's where I'm at. I mean, we'll see what happens. Look, there's a lot of hockey left to be played, and these prospects are, blue chip prospects. Like, let's see what happens with them. But for me, it's just funny the way that things go sometimes. And that's kind of where I'm at with it.
The way I look at it is, like you think about McDavid going into the final year of his contract. The conversations didn't start with McDavid until he was eligible to re-sign. Same with Austin Matthews in the past. Like, this is a problem akin to Vancouver where it's happened more than 2 years out from his contract expiring. The conversation started of, is this guy going to re-sign? And it's because we could all see the writing on the wall that they haven't built enough of a competitive team to keep Quinn Hughes happy and see a pathway to a Stanley Cup championship in Vancouver. Ultimately, that falls on the organization. Jim Rutherford is now saying, I guess, the right things in this moment. He used the word rebuild in his quote after the Canucks sent out their press release. I'm sure a lot of fans are happy to see that, but the proof is going to be in the pudding. You don't, say you're going to do a rebuild on December 12th, and then come the summer, you're trying to trade first round picks to add something to the roster because you're impatient and you think that you're closer than you actually are. And that is the problem that has plagued the Vancouver Canucks for way too long. They feel like they're closer than they actually are, and they don't let their bank account build. They don't let the interest build in the bank account. And it ends up crushing them in the end. It ends up with short windows that don't last all that long. And you're left with a situation where you have to trade the best player in franchise history because you didn't, in the 8 years he was here, you didn't build enough of a contender to keep him here.
And again, just to give my final thoughts, Dan, you're bang on. Like, this is why they lost Quinn Hughes. And sure, it's complicated. You're going to have more things, but ultimately it comes down to not surrounding him with enough talent. And if there's one positive, the Quinn Hughes trade at least sets them up to accumulate the amount of talent that you are going to need to not lose the next Quinn Hughes. If you're drafting in the top 5 and
Good
you're
luck finding the
lucky
next
enough,
Quinn Hughes, like
exactly. But if you're
50 plus
lucky
years
enough,
of the organization, they never had a defenseman anywhere close to Quinn Hughes.
sure, but if you're lucky enough to
Never a
find
player.
someone, if you're lucky enough to find someone in the top 5 of the draft who you're really happy about and that you can build around, you need to have a ton of assets. You need to have all these pieces that you're hoping that they're now going to start accumulating, that are all the same age, that are all lining up at the right time. You can't have one toe in, one toe out. That's not how it works. So anyways, those are my final thoughts. But yeah, gentlemen, thank you for joining me. I appreciate it.
Thanks, fellas. Good to join on.
Come join us for brunch on Sunday, Rink Wide on Rink Wide on Sunday.
Irfaan, Gaffar, Dan, Riccio. Thanks, fellas. Appreciate it. There they go. Yeah, Jacob, turn your mic on. We've got a lot of super chats to get through, but man, oh man, what a day! What a day! This emergency episode is longer than a full episode of Canucks Conversation. Yeah, what a day! A sad day. A sad day. We had Stephen Ellis on the show earlier. There's going to be a lot of fallout from all of this. Harman and I will be back on Monday to talk about this, I'm sure, more at length. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. And also, I should clarify my last point because someone in the chat said you're blaming management. No, I'm not. I am directly talking about ownership. The shortcuts come from ownership. That's what I'm talking about. Just to make myself abundantly clear as possible. And hey, guess what? The rebuild that's coming. That ownership has to sign off on that. So Rutherford uses the word rebuild today. Ownership had to sign off on that. And again, this has been a conversation for years in Vancouver. So we'll see what the next thing is. Condon said, read Dan Murphy's latest tweet.
All right. While you go there, I'm going to rip through the super chats. Hopefully I don't miss any, everyone. We've got everything tracked here in the back. Spatzilly, regular listener, can't watch, but shout out to you guys. Shout out to you, Spatzilly. Thank you. Hopefully you watch this on demand later. I think we read that one. We got to that one. Guru J8827. Do we think Quinn gets Somali scam money in mini? I assuming that's a joke, like they're going to pay him under the table or just give him as much money as possible. Like, I mean, look, if I'm the Minnesota Wild, I would give Quinn Hughes as much money as it possibly takes to extend him.
Jacob, I need to cut you off. Sorry.
Yes,
the tweet from Dan Murphy is Jim Rutherford says he doesn't believe that the Canucks have to go full-blown rebuild, but they will trade more players for draft capital, not looking to trade their first-round picks unless it's for a really good young player. So that's, again, I said we're going to wrap. I got to run because Patrick Alvin and I think Jim Rutherford are speaking in 5 minutes on a Zoom call, and I need to be there for that. But yeah, that is the quote. According to Dan Murphy, Canucks don't have to go full-blown rebuild. They will trade more players for draft capital, not looking to trade first-round picks unless it's for a really good young player. So we'll see. But this is the fear that I think Canucks fans have, is just that it's going to be another retool. It's going to be more shortcuts. And yeah, I've made my stance on it very clear. I don't think there's anything else to read. Jacob, get the super chats in.
Couple more super chats. We have D'Lo Fiasco, Canucks won, tank for McKenna, calling Quinn the best player in franchise history is crazy. Bure better than Quinn. Let's get it 792. Billy G's USA GM. I think he has a good feeling for Hughes' future. I expect he gets an extension done next year. We read that one, and then we read that one. Okay, good. So we're through all the super chats. I believe if you had one and we forgot, I'm very sorry, but do know that our super
We had a
chat,
lot.
yes, and our super chat charity partner is the BC Mental Health Foundation. That's where the proceeds of these super chats are going to go. Last thing, if you still want some more coverage, our colleagues Matt Sakaris and Blake Price are currently live on their channel. I'll drop the link into the YouTube version of the stream. You can find them. They just went live 20 minutes ago. I believe Jay Pat's over there. They'll have some more coverage breaking this one down on their YouTube channel as we get things wrapped up here. Last and certainly not least, please, if you enjoyed this episode, if you were venting in the chat or you appreciate the guest we have, please leave a like and please subscribe to the YouTube channel. We do a weekly show here, Canucks Conversation, 2:00 every week. We'll be right back at it Monday, as Quad said. And if you subscribe and join us next week and beyond, we would really appreciate that.
All right. I think we can close out there. There's Wild fans. I'm almost angry.
Lots of Wild fans in the chat.
I'm angry. I haven't seen a Wild fan excited about this trade. I'm angry that there's so many Wild fans being like, we got fleeced. If we don't re-sign Hughes, this trade's a miss. Like, this is your chance to go get a cup. Go get the cup. Go get the Stanley Cup. You've got Quinn Hughes. Yeah.
I think Wild fans will realize when they see Quinn Hughes suit up for them how special of a player he really is. And hopefully some of those takes start to shift in the next couple weeks.
Tim W. with arguably, actually, I'm not going to make fun of anyone tonight. Tim W. said, this is a shock, but not surprising. The media chased him out of town, drove him crazy with all the made up trade talk. They needed to trade him to relieve the pressure. Tim, if you're just joining us, Jim Rutherford saying moments ago that they were informed in the offseason that Quinn was not going to be re-signing. So this became something that was on their radar. And we didn't know that. The media didn't know that. The media didn't even report that. That was damn media. Anyways, I don't think we have anything else to get to. Jacob, anything you want to say?
Nope, we are good to go. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
All right, go read Canucks Army. Go check out Sakaris and Price. They're going live right now. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Well over 20,000 people joining the stream. Unbelievable numbers tonight. And for everybody on podcast, thank you as well. But we will close it out there for everybody that joined me. I can't name them all off the top of my head. Everybody that joined me and everybody on the stream as well. Thank you so much for listening to the episode of Canucks Conversation.
Canucks Conversation is live Monday through Friday, every weekday at 2 p.m. over on the Canucks Army YouTube channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, and interact in the YouTube live chat every day with us, folks.